I think this is my first film video that has nothing to do with music. Okay, well, that's the intro.
The number one rule in my family: honor your parents.
Turning Red is an animated film by Pixar released exclusively on Disney+. If you've seen any discussion of this film on Twitter, well, you'll know what's going on. I'm not here to dismiss any of the discussion, but allow me to give my perspective as an Asian American. My thoughts might surprise you. And also, I want to farm some of those clickbaity views. At least I'm upfront about that. So how do I feel about this movie? It's alright. It works as a film, but I felt like it did the minimum of what it needs to do to have a decent story. The strengths were in its characters, but certain aspects and motivations I felt were still left to be desired. And frankly, the Asian parts of it, well, I'll get into that. Turning Red is about a young girl named Mei-Lin. Some of the discussion on Twitter heavily revolves around who Mei-Lin is, and I'm gonna say it, she's Canadian. Actually, she's Chinese-Canadian. Her family runs a temple worshipping the red panda god, who's actually their ancestor. Mei-Lin is eager to not disappoint her parents, particularly her mother. After she draws sexy art of a boy she crushes on, and through some misunderstandings, she shows said art to said boy.
What?
I was a little surprised that Pixar would put in a scene of a preteen girl drawing sexy fan art of someone. I mean, South Park's done it, but I think it's funny that Pixar of all studios would make it an element of their main character. I mean, the film is set in the early 2000s. This could be the origin of DeviantArt, and Mei-Lin could have very well started it. Mei-Lin is overcome by strong emotion, causing her to transform into a knockoff Red Totoro. It turns out the giant red panda persona runs in the family, and there's a special ritual to release the panda demon, but of course, the ritual has to be on the same day as the big concert. The entire film is Mei-Lin having to control her emotions to keep the red panda from coming out, learning to like the red panda, an allegory for her own autonomy as a person, and a relationship with her mother who has an overbearing need to protect her daughter. Turning Red takes its roots in Asian culture, and there are strong hints of elder respect and familial obligation that I thought was nice to see. The story itself was basic, but it did its job. The animation for the most part was good, especially the red panda sequences. I really like how much zanier the movements are when Mei-Lin is transformed. It magnifies her eccentricities. I know it's an animated film, but it feels more cartoony, but in a good way. Mei-Lin herself captures being a preteen girl pretty accurately from what I can tell, and though I'm not a preteen girl and I can't really relate to those aspects of it, that excitement that she gets when she fantasizes over things that she loves and the world around her melts away, everyone's felt that. Everyone knows what that feeling's like. And especially at her age, she's at that sweet spot where she's young enough to have an active imagination, but old enough to be able to take action and make it a reality. I think to some extent, all humans have that childlike sense of wonder that fuels our excitement, much like it does for Mei-Lin. That's why kids scream when they get gaming consoles for Christmas. It's almost like a primal instinct humans possess over our own excitement, and it's fitting to personify that in the red panda. The last thing I liked was the mythos behind it, with her ancestor being granted the ability to transform into a red panda, and having that be passed down to the women in her lineage. With that being said, all the strengths of the film are fine, but the weaknesses of the film, it's that whatever it's given us, I feel isn't enough. The pacing in the film felt a bit sluggish after the intro, and I actually fell asleep trying to watch it. The last third was good, but I feel like whatever material they put in for the first 2/3 weren't enough to carry that much of the runtime. The animation is good at a glance, but some of it feels too corporate and generic, kind of like the infamous Grubhub ad. That's just how it feels animation or movement-wise. There are bits like the cat box that just straight up looks like a DreamWorks film. No, not even a DreamWorks film. Like a TV series spin-off of a DreamWorks film. That's how bad it looks. Then there's the character design where everyone feels so generic. I'll expand on Mei-Lin later, but I can't for the life of me remember what her dad looks like while writing this script, and even while recording it, Jesus. Her mom has a really distinct design in her fashion with a blazer, pointed shoulders, and her asymmetric hair. It forms a silhouette. Mei-Lin's friends, I feel, don't have the silhouette, but are recognizable from their respective colors. Kind of like Power Rangers. But none of these characters really stick out to me like a design from Luca does. Looking at his human form, you can see the wave-like design in his hair. His simple yet informative outfit looks like he's about to walk into 1-foot deep water. I haven't even seen Luca, but that character design tells me much more at first glance, unlike Mei-Lin's, which doesn't really tell you much about her character at all. Well, unlike the character design, the film's writing is much better, and its strength is in its character motivations. Each one has a motivation that I feel helps fuel their actions. However, I don't think the actions taken were necessarily appropriate. Mei-Lin gets caught as the red panda at a party. She's been trying to keep it secret throughout the whole film, and her mom sees no fault in her and instead blames her friends for manipulating her. Instead of fessing up, Mei-Lin refuses to defy her mom so she doesn't make her any more angry. Except later, she does that anyway, and her mom pulls a
I am your mother! I am your mother! I gave birth to you!
I think it would have hit harder had she succumbed to her panda and defended her friends right there, only for her mom to scold her in front of them. It would have played on bigger flaws rather than having to have Mei-Lin revert to a completely lesser flaw, that being needing her mother's approval. But I think the worst part of it all is, a lot of this could be solved if the characters just communicated. And I feel the film should have at least acknowledged that option, but instead it treats it like it were never an option. Have Mei-Lin try to communicate with her mom, only to be shut down without a single thought. It would have been a great way to show Mei-Lin breaking free of being her perfect girl by adding small bits of questioning in. There's more of a build-up to it. The mom is an absolute psycho, the helicopter parent. She needed to be called out on it. Best we get is Mei-Lin saying she won't be her perfect girl mid-kaiju fight. Then finally, the one feeling I couldn't shake off was that I feel the film wants to shame not just Mei-Lin's bubbly and grand fantasies, but all forms of that kind of thought. I get it at the end that she chooses to keep the panda and embrace them, but the rest of the family choose to let their pandas go. Mei-Lin proves that it can be controlled, so I feel them making that decision still says, fuck you, there's shame in being extra energetic and greedy. I'm running out of ways to describe her eccentricity, but if you watch it, you'll know it. Now on to some of the Twitter discussions. I usually don't let Twitter influence what I like and what I see the film as, but I think it's worth discussing them if I can pull something relevant out. I would have addressed them anyway if the discussion hadn't happened, because I just feel really strongly about the messaging in this movie. So what is animation Twitter all up in arms about? Couple things. First thing, Mei-Lin's character design, or really the character designs in general, but mainly focused on Mei-Lin. All I have to say is, it's generic, and before anyone attacks me in the comments and raises my engagements by doing so, hint hint, I can agree to that. To me, it has nothing to do with her race or anything about her physical appearance. It's that there's nothing keeping her from blending in with the background characters. She doesn't really look like a main character. Apparently, the character designs are based on Studio Ghibli, which I think is cool, but I think they missed the big point about Studio Ghibli character designs. In Ghibli films, how a character looks shows her relation to other people or society. Chihiro wears a distinct green striped shirt at the start of Spirited Away, but has to put on a pink worker's uniform to blend in and not stick out, reinforcing how her identity was taken away. Kiki is dressed like a witch in this town of non-witches. For Mei-Lin, she still dresses the same, and other than her hair color changing, she still looks similar to her other classmates. There's nothing contrasting her. Sophie does something similar to the red panda and turns into an old woman, but it's directly tied to her lack of physical self-worth, and the old woman is used to show that she can be loved despite her appearance. The red panda stuff is good, but Mei-Lin's friends were already as imaginative and hyperactive as her. If anything, it taught her that such behavior was ugly or shameful, but I think her mom scolding her over it with no transformation would have hit more because it comes from someone she respects so strongly. Doesn't help that other than her red hair later on, she doesn't really have any signature features to her design. Things as simple as brightly colored glasses or a strand of hair to give her a slight imperfection for her silhouette. Go back to my description of Luca and I feel like I pull more from that design. Tyler, the bully character in this film, has a much more appealing design. The way his hair comes out, the headband, the ear jewelry, the purple and white stripe motif that extends from his headband to his hoodie. Go back to Mei-Lin and her sweater is red. The next Twitter issue is race and ethnicity and whether turning red has universal appeal. And let me tell you, as an Asian American, I think Mei-Lin's ethnic background sets up no cultural barrier to keep you from understanding the sentiments of this film. The strengths are in its character, not its cultural undertones. As for how Chinese culture was incorporated into the film, it kinda sucked and was essentially nothing to me. Which is even more baffling considering the film was created by Chinese women. I can't speak to the women part, but I can speak to the Chinese part. I'm part Chinese. What's stopping them from swapping out one culture for another here? I don't think they necessarily follow anything that's uniquely Chinese that can only be told from a Chinese perspective. Other than the aesthetics, the closest we get is the parental/elder respect element of the plot, and that to me was underdone. Sure, the strict Asian parent's a bit of a stereotype, but in general Asian culture, it is true that you can't really defy your parent. It's a big thing. Questioning your parents is kind of the biggest sin you could commit as an Asian child, but also, sometimes you just want to ask genuine questions and understand something, but you kind of have to do as you're told. Elders in general are held in high regard. Many Asian families in Asian countries are just expected to take care of a family member at old age. Nursing homes just aren't as big of a thing in Asia. Well, the thing that I've experienced and have found most in common with other Asian friends is that not every aspect of our cultures are perfect. Some can be sometimes problematic and should be kind of questioned. This brings up a question that I feel was never brought up in the film proper in the way that I was hoping, that being, can my own culture's values and traditions be flawed? At best, the film sets it up as Mei-Lin accepting herself and growing up with her mom allowing her to go, but in my opinion, it should have been Mei-Lin questioning tradition on why she's keeping a part of herself locked up. Her mom doesn't see the error of her ways, and she just sees a better future for her daughter. But if Mei-Lin were to challenge her, not only would that give her her blessing, but they would have also been on equal ground, and the two could have built on each other's perspectives and grown. The way the film currently ends, she doesn't know any more about her mother, and her mother doesn't know any more about her. Today's society has been embracing minority cultures more and more, and I think that's great. But I feel like we're putting our own traditions on pedestals here. There's no dialogue to point out the flaws or the nuances. Mei-Lin's mom truly cares for her, but from her perspective, she's not in the wrong. This would be a non-issue if they spoke honestly, but Mei-Lin has traditionally fueled fear of doing this. At what point does elevating this type of behavior to where we can't criticize it become a form of exoticism? Hear me out. We're essentially using a big part of Chinese culture as a backdrop. If we aren't talking about it and creating this dialogue, then why is it there? We're just ogling our eyes at it because it's foreign and it's exoticism. I hate to say we shot ourselves in the foot with this. At that point, Mei-Lin should just live in a normal house, not a temple. Be transformative with your Asian media is all I'm asking. That way we can all grow. Turning Red touches on it at best, but fails to stick the landing. It does the bare minimum of being a complete story, and that makes it okay, but there's nothing to truly make it great. Let's be real, is this film going to be remembered in a year? If you were able to draw your own meaning from this film and you absolutely enjoyed it, good for you. As I said earlier in the video, there are aspects of this film that I don't personally relate to, and that's okay. And I've heard from others that they were able to pull from the tween girl perspective, and that's fantastic. But I was able to pull from the Asian perspective of it, and it just didn't work for me. At least Disney's other film with a heroine of Chinese descent doesn't pretend that there's something big to overcome. She just wants to go to homecoming. Do you agree with my take on Turning Red? Let me know in the comments, and be sure to like it, or I'll put a curse on you, and you'll turn into a, well, not a red panda, but you'll turn into a full-blown loser. You wouldn't want that now, would you? Oh, and subscribe and turn on notifications. I also stream on Twitch at twitch.tv/mintbaribusiness. Come hang out.